Picture this. It's Saturday morning, the sun is out. It is an absolute cracker of a day.
Perfect.
You've loaded up the adventure bike, or maybe you're just in the ute, and you're heading out for a drive in the Southern Downs in Queensland.
Yep, I'm with you.
You've got a line on a map, a track you've maybe driven years ago, or one you've just spotted and thought, that looks like a shortcut to a bit of adventure. It is a dedicated public road. It's on the GPS.
It connects point A to point B. You're ready for a bit of discovery, maybe a thermos of tea by a creek.
Exactly. You're cruising along, dust in the rear view, feeling good, and then bam, you hit a gate.
The dreaded gate.
And I'm not talking about a farm gate you can hop out and open, wave to the cows, and close behind you.
Yeah.
We're talking a heavy chain, a padlock, and a big, unfriendly road closed sign.
It's the road closed sign that really changes the dynamic, doesn't it? It's not a temporary hazard. It feels like a permanent wall.
It's a total vibe killer. But today, we aren't just having a whinge about a locked gate. We're zooming in on one specific gate that has become a massive legal and economic battleground.
We're talking about Murphy's Crossing Road in the Somme district.
We are. And while this is a local story, the implications about how we manage public land, who gets to use it, and the money we're leaving on the table are, well, they're huge.
This is a classic case of what I like to call administrative inertia. We're looking at a stack of documents here that paint a very, very confusing picture.
So what have we got? Let's have a squiz.
We have a draft administrative law challenge. We have council meeting minutes going back to November 2021. And we've got some deep dive land title searches that reveal things I don't think the public was ever really meant to focus on.
And we've also got some fascinating economic data from the FCAI and the backcountry discovery routes that suggests this isn't just about a road. It is about a lost fortune. So what's our mission here?
Our mission is to figure out why a public road connecting Nundubbermere Road and Bents Road, a vital link, has been shut since early 2024.
All based on a decision from 2021.
Exactly. We need to unpack why the legal reasons are shaky, why the financial excuses don't hold water, and most importantly, why keeping this gate locked is essentially burning money.
All right. Let's start with the basics. Murphy's Crossing. Not just a driveway, right?
No, far from it. This is a dedicated public road. In the world of maps and surveys, that means it's land set aside specifically for the traveling public.
It's not private property.
It's a public asset. But for the last 3 years or thereabouts, the public has been totally excluded.
3 years. The sources call this a temporary closure. Now, I don't know about you, but in my life, temporary usually means a few weeks. Maybe a month if the contractors are slow.
3 years feels like a permanent state of affairs.
It does stretch the definition, doesn't it?
It does, and that's actually the first pillar of the challenge here. This all stems from a Southern Downs Regional Council report from November 10th, 2021.
Okay, so that's the origin point.
It is. There was an application to close part of Murphy's Crossing Road. Now, usually, a council's job is to protect public assets. If someone wants to close a public road, the council should be the first one to say, hang on a minute, our ratepayers need that.
But they didn't.
No. The council resolved not to object to the closure. They essentially waved it through.
Okay, play devil's advocate for me. If a road is dangerous or if it's washed out, the council has to close it, right?
Yeah.
Liability and all that.
That is the standard defense. And the report does mention the road was in poor condition. But, and this is a huge but, you have to look at the specific rationale provided for why it was in poor condition.
Go on.
The report explicitly noted that the road was attracting recreational 4WD enthusiasts, which is causing further degradation.
Wait, let me run that back. They closed the road because people were driving on it.
That is the core of the argument they used.
That feels incredibly circular. It's like closing a park because too many kids are playing on the swings.
It is circular, and the administrative law challenge document we're reviewing, it jumps right on this. It argues that this logic is legally flawed.
How so?
Under the Land Act 1994, which is the rule book for all this, roads are dedicated for public use. So the legal argument here is that evidence of use people driving 4WDs, riding adventure bikes, actually proves the road is still needed.
So legally speaking, the fact that there were tire tracks on the road should have been the proof required to keep it open.
Precisely. If there's demand, the road is fulfilling its purpose. You can't validly say the public is using this public road too much, so we must stop the public from using it to save the road.
It defeats the whole point.
It prioritizes the preservation of dirt over the rights of the citizens who own it.
And it's not just a dead end, is it? I'm looking at the network map here. If you close this section, what happens to the traffic?
You sever the network. The advocacy groups point out that Murphy's Crossing is a major through road. There are many side roads that terminate there. If you lock the gate in the middle, you turn a through route into two long dead ends.
So you're forcing locals, tourists, maybe even emergency services to take a massive detour.
The source mentions extensive kilometers of detours. And this brings us to a concept in administrative law called reasonableness.
Reasonableness. Sounds like something my mom would use. Be reasonable. But it means something specific in court, doesn't it?
It does. A decision can be challenged if it's legally unreasonable. That essentially means a decision that no reasonable decision maker, properly weighing the facts, would arrive at.
And the argument is that this decision fails that test.
The argument is that closing a major thoroughfare for 3 years, severing a network, and blocking a public right just because some 4W-ers were using it, well, it fails that test. It's a sledgehammer to crack a walnut.
It definitely fails the pub test. If you told a mate at the pub, yeah, we closed the highway because there were too many cars on it, they'd laugh at you.
They would.
But let's pivot. Because usually when councils do unpopular things, the excuse is money. We're broke. We can't afford to grade the road. Sorry, folks.
That's the assumption everyone makes, isn't it? It's a budget cut.
Is it? Is the Southern Downs Regional Council just trying to save a few bucks?
This is where the story gets really juicy. We dug into the historical title search and the lessee liability documents.
Okay.
This road, it runs through leased land, specifically Lot 92, title reference 400-59288.
You're speaking my language now. Numbers and titles. What's hidden in the fine print?
This land is held under a rolling term lease. When the grazier signed up for this land, they agreed to specific conditions. One of them is Condition H123.
Condition H123. Sounds ominous.
It's actually very liberating for the council. It states, and I'm quoting here, the provision of access or services to the leased land will not be the responsibility of Southern Downs Regional Council or the state.
Hold on. Not the responsibility.
Yeah.
So the council isn't legally on the hook to maintain it.
It gets better.
Okay.
Condition L110 mandates that the lessee, the person leasing the land, must maintain the improvements. And in the council's own 2021 report, the same one that recommended not objecting to the closure, they admitted this. They stated clearly that the council does not maintain this section of the road reserve.
Okay, let's pause and let that sink in. If the council doesn't maintain the road, and the lease says they don't have to provide services, then keeping the gate open costs the council exactly $0.
Correct.
So if a councilor stood up and said, we have to keep this closed to save the ratepayers money, they would be incorrect.
They would be operating on a false premise. The council is effectively indemnified. The financial burden of that road falls on the lessee, or it just stays as a rough track. The budget crisis argument just evaporates when you read the lease.
That completely flips the script. We aren't choosing between a library and a dirt road.
The road is free.
So if it costs nothing to keep open, we have to ask the darker question. What is the cost of keeping it closed?
And this is the pivot to opportunity cost. We know what we're saving, nothing. But what are we losing? To understand that, we have to look at who those recreational enthusiasts actually are.
The wallets on wheels, that's what we called them in the pre-show.
Exactly. The council report dismissed them as people causing degradation. But in economic terms, that is a profound misreading of the market. We have data here from the Backcountry Discovery Routes, or BDR.
Okay, the BDR.
It's a nonprofit in the U.S. that creates exactly these kinds of routes connecting remote dirt roads for adventure motorcycles.
And I know we always say, oh, but that's America, but the trends usually map pretty well. What's the economic impact of these riders over there?
It is staggering. The BDR study found that their routes generate over $60 million annually in economic impact.
$60 million for driving on dirt.
Yes. Think about it. These aren't day trippers packing a sandwich. Adventure riding is a multi-day commitment. They need fuel, obviously, but they also need food.
Accommodation.
They need accommodation, hotels, motels, campgrounds. They need supplies from the local IGA. The study found that in a single year, riders on these routes generated $9.6 million in motorcycle sales and another $500,000 or so in apparel and gear.
So they're buying the bike to do the ride.
Exactly. It is destination tourism. And does it apply to Australia? Absolutely. The FCAI, that's the Federal Chamber of Automotive Industries, submitted an inquiry response that backs this up completely.
What do they find?
They note that off-road dirt bikes are the second largest segment of the motorcycle market in Australia.
Second largest, that is huge.
We're talking roughly 34 to 43% of all sales, depending on the year. That's a massive demographic. And the FCAI makes a critical point. These riders are looking for destination riding. They specifically want remote dirt roads and tiny towns.
And this is key, right? Because they aren't looking for the Gold Coast. They aren't looking for a five-star resort in Sydney. They want the gritty, authentic, rural experience.
Correct. They are drawn to areas that are often struggling. The FCAI mentions regions that have lost traditional industries like forestry or mining. These towns have the infrastructure, the old pubs, the general stores, but they don't have the foot traffic.
Adventure tourism brings that traffic right to their doorstep.
It does. So when we look at Murphy's Crossing, it's described in the documents as very scenic. It's a link between areas. By locking that gate, the council is effectively putting up a closed for business sign to thousands of potential tourists.
It's an economic own goal.
Absolutely. You have a demographic that is wealthy enough to buy expensive adventure bikes, eager to travel to remote areas, and willing to ride on unmaintained roads, which costs the council nothing. Instead of rolling out the red carpet, we're locking them out.
It seems crazy you're turning away free money. But I have to bring us back to the other side of the fence. The grazier. They're trying to run a business too. Cows and sheep.
And that's the primary counter-argument. We need to manage the stock.
And fair enough. If I had 1,000 head of cattle, I wouldn't want people leaving gates open.
Mhm.
But is total closure the only way?
Well, the administrative law challenge tackles this head-on. It argues that cattle habituation to vehicles is normal.
Habituation. That's a fancy word for getting used to it.
Exactly. If you drive through outback Queensland or the Northern Territory, you're driving through pastoral leases constantly. There are unfenced roads everywhere.
The cows graze, the cars pass, the world keeps turning.
Shared use is the standard model in rural Australia. So the idea that you need total exclusion of the public to run a farm, that is the exception, not the rule. It's very hard to justify.
So the legal argument is that it's a disproportionate response.
It is. It prioritizes a private convenience over a public right. And surely there are middle grounds.
Like what?
The sources suggest alternatives. You can have auto-closing gates. You can have grids. You can have signage asking people to slow down. You can even have temporary restrictions during sensitive times, like calving.
But a 3-year blanket ban.
That fails the unreasonableness test we talked about earlier. It's using that sledgehammer to crack a nut again. And we haven't even touched on the safety aspect for other users.
The vulnerable users.
This is a critical point. The documents highlight that Murphy's Crossing isn't just for engines. It's a safe road for non-vehicular traffic.
So cyclists, horse riders, hikers.
Exactly, because if you close the back road, where do they go?
They get pushed onto the highway.
And mixing cyclists or horses with B-doubles and highway traffic is a recipe for disaster. Murphy's Crossing provided a safe, quiet corridor. By closing it, you aren't just inconveniencing them, you are endangering them. The road is still needed for their safety.
So let's summarize the scorecard here. 1. We have a legal argument that says closing a road because it's used is nonsense.
Yep. 2. We have a financial reality that says keeping it open costs the council $0 because of the lease terms.
3. We have an economic opportunity where keeping it closed is costing the region millions in potential tourism revenue.
And 4. We have a safety issue where vulnerable users are being pushed onto highways. That is a very comprehensive summary of the failure here.
So who fixes this? We've got the documents, we've got the arguments. Who holds the key?
According to the Department of Resources, and we have a quote here from late last year or early this year, they've stated that whether the road is reopened is a matter between Southern Downs Regional Council and the department.
So the ball is squarely in the council's court.
It is. The department acts on the council's advice. The council originally resolved not to object. They have the power to revisit that.
So they can look at this new data, the BDR numbers, the FCAI report, the legal challenges, and say, you know what? We got this wrong.
The landscape has changed. It feels like a moment for a reset. You know, back in 2021, maybe they didn't have the BDR study on their desk. Maybe they didn't realize that temporary would drag on for 3 years.
But they know now.
Ignorance is no longer an excuse. The information is public. The economic case is compelling. And frankly, rural councils are always looking for ways to boost their local economies.
And here's a strategy that requires no capital investment.
Just unlock the gate. It's the cheapest stimulus package they'll ever find.
You know, it really makes you wonder. We drive past these road closed signs all the time. We grumble, we turn around, we find another way. But how many of those closures are like Murphy's Crossing?
How many are based on wobbly logic or a misunderstanding of who pays for what?
That is the provocative thought, isn't it? We assume the authorities have done the maths. We assume there's a good reason. But sometimes It's just inertia. Sometimes it is just easier to say no than to manage yes.
Is saving a grazier the minor hassle of opening a gate really worth shutting out the future of regional tourism?
That is the question the Southern Downs Regional Council needs to answer.
And until they do, the community is paying the price.
Well, if you're listening and you're in the Southern Downs or anywhere in rural Australia, really maybe pull out a map. Look at where the dotted lines go. Look at where they stop.
You might be surprised at what opportunities are hidden behind those locks.
And maybe ask your local counselor why the gate is shut.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.
We'll catch you on the next one.